For 100 years, one choice has separated the people whose money grows from the people whose money quietly shrinks. It isn't luck. It isn't even income. Plenty of high earners stay broke, and plenty of quiet savers end up wealthy. It comes down to a single decision, made over and over, to own or to hold. By the end of this, you'll see exactly why owning productive assets beats holding cash. Not sometimes, but structurally, again and again. And it's the natural conclusion of everything this series has shown. Let's make it concrete. Two people, same start, 10,000 pounds each. The first keeps it safe as cash in the bank where the number never falls. The second buys a productive asset, shares in real companies, a slice of the economy's output. Now run the clock forward 30 years. The cautious one still has their 10,000. The number is intact. But in what it can actually buy, it has quietly shrunk. The owner's 10,000, meanwhile, has become something closer to 70 or 80,000 in real inflation-adjusted terms. Same money, same start, opposite destinations. The question this whole video answers is simple. Why is that gap so reliable? It turns out there isn't one reason. There are four, and they all push the same way. The first force you already understand because we just spent 2 videos on it, inflation. Cash is a fixed claim. Its number stays put while prices climb past it, so in real terms it bleeds value every year. A productive asset is the opposite. A company raises its prices, grows its revenue, and its shares rise with the very inflation that erodes cash. The house, the business, the share, they're priced in tomorrow's money. So inflation isn't neutral between the two. It's a headwind for the saver and a tailwind for the owner. The same force that drains the cash line is lifting the asset line. That alone bends the two paths apart, and it never stops. The second force is the tax code, and we covered this too. A paycheck is taxed the moment you earn it, but an asset that rises in value isn't taxed until you sell, if ever. Your gains compound untouched, year after year, while the saver's interest is taxed as it trickles in. Hold for decades and you defer the bill for decades. Pass the asset on, and in some systems, the built-up gain is wiped clean entirely. So the owner compounds on the whole sum, and the earner compounds on what's left after tax. The system doesn't tax wealth as it grows, it taxes income as it arrives. That asymmetry quietly favors the owner every single year. The third force is subtler, and it's the one most people never see, the lesson from earlier in this series. New money doesn't reach everyone at once. It enters through credit and markets, and it reaches asset owners first, while prices are still low. By the time it filters out to wages and shop prices, the early holders have already bought in. So the owner isn't just protected from inflation. They're positioned at the front of the line for the new money that causes it. Cash sits at the back of that line, assets sit at the front. Across decades of monetary expansion, that position compounds into an enormous head start. The fourth force is the quietest and the most powerful, compounding. Returns earn returns. A sum growing at about 7% a year, the rough long-run real return on equities and on housing across more than a century of data doubles roughly every decade. 10,000 becomes 20, then 40, then 80. The first decade looks unremarkable. The later ones look like magic, but it's just the same curve, finally going steep. Cash can't do this. At zero real growth, 10,000 stays 10,000 forever. Compounding is the engine, and the other 3 forces are what keep it fed. Give it enough time, and it dwarfs everything else. So stack them together and watch the 2 lines for what they really are. Inflation capture, favorable tax, early position, and compounding. 4 structural forces, all pushing the same direction, all of the time. The cash line stays flat in name and sinks in real value. The asset line bends upward, and every one of those forces is a hand underneath it, lifting. This is why the gap isn't a fluke or a lucky decade or one hot stock. It's the predictable result of 4 advantages, working in the same direction for years. The owner didn't outsmart the saver. They stood where the forces blow. Over the long run, productive assets have returned around 6 to 7% a year after inflation. Cash, close to zero. That gap, compounded over a lifetime, is the distance between the 2 destinations. Now the honest part, and it matters more here than anywhere, always is a long-run word, not a promise. Assets are volatile. Stocks can fall 40 or 50% and take years to climb back. And the long run can outlast your patience or your timeline. If you're forced to sell in a crash, or you borrowed to buy and the loan gets called, the same math that rewards the patient owner can ruin the leveraged one. Past returns are an average across history, not a guarantee for your particular 30 years. And cash, for all its quiet erosion, doesn't crash. That certainty is worth something real. None of this is advice to buy anything. It's the structure beneath the averages, the why, not a what. So, what's the actual lesson? It was never a stock tip, it's a stance. Be an owner and be patient. The people whose wealth compounds aren't necessarily smarter or higher paid. They've simply spent more of their life on the ownership side of these four forces and given them time to work. The ordinary version takes no genius and no fortune. Own a broad, low-cost slice of the economy, hold it through the noise, and let the structure do what it reliably does. You can't control the next year. You can control whether you spend your decade standing where the wind is at your back. Owning productive things beats holding money, not by luck, but because inflation, tax, position, and compounding all lean the same way for anyone willing to wait. That's the engine underneath almost every fortune that lasts. But building wealth is only half the problem. The harder half is keeping it, passing it on without the tax system taking a third at the door. That's where we go next, how the rich move wealth across generations intact. Until then, own, hold, and let time do the work. Thank you for watching.